Well, hello again. It's Lee Thurburn, and I'm delighted to invite you back to livestreamlee.com, where we talk about stuff that is going to help you grow your business faster and help you to become more profitable. So I am kind of jiggling around with my screen here to make sure that I have what I want in front. And so I'm just about ready to go ahead and begin. So live Streamly is something I do every day at 3 o'clock, and I do it specifically to help you grow your business faster. Now, we talk about a lot of stuff. Recently, we've been focused on showing you how to develop cell phone apps. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want you to understand why the price of cell phone apps is either already or about to kind of fall through the floor and become incredibly affordable. Now, you may very well have talked to people about getting a cell phone app for your business at some point in the past, and chances are pretty good you got prices in the $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 range, all the way on up to $20,000, $30,000. Now, there are certainly some kinds of apps that you are still going to have to spend a lot of money for, but I think you're going to be amazed at what you can have for an incredibly affordable price. Now, what I'm going to show you today is a continuation of a project that I'm doing live, which is to build a cell phone app that allows you, if you wanted to have an Etsy style marketplace on your phone, that you could be the Etsy and you could run the marketplace and you could let vendors sell products on your marketplace and you could earn a commission when they sell the product. And you don't even have to get in between the customer and the vendor to do this. The customer finds something that they want, some candles or soap or whatever, and they buy it directly from the vendor. You take a commission. The vendor is responsible for dealing with the customer. If by chance the customer needs a refund, that's between the vendor and the customer. You've done your job and earned a commission by putting the two of them together. That's the concept of the app that we're building. And we're doing it purely as a demonstration so that you can see how a relatively sophisticated cell phone app can be created in a fairly straightforward process. Now, this is not coding. This is what's called no-code development, and we're using a tool called adalo.com. And so again, the whole purpose of me doing this live is so that you can see and understand how and why the price of cell phone apps is plummeting. And now we offer apps, and that's something I'm going to actually kind of down below. ApricotRocket.com and AppyRocket.com are a couple of websites that kind of are my day job. And my day job is to provide software to help businesses capture and grow and nurture relationships with customers and grow those relationships with prospects, converting them into customers. That's Apricot Rocket. We have networking groups, and we recently launched the cell phone app development and service, which is AppyRocket.com. Now, before I go any further, I want to just say, please go to ApricotRocket.com, create an account, learn about Apricot Rocket. Go to livestreamlee.com and create an account so that you can have access to documents and other things related to this show and this program. When you create an account and become a community member of livestreamlee.com, you'll actually be creating an account on Apricot Rocket. So you can kind of kill two birds with one stone. And before I get started, I want to tell you about a friend of mine named Dan Nelson. And Dan might be the most interesting guy I know. He is a genealogist, and he has really great stories that he comes across as he does his research. Dan is a historian, a genealogist. He's a master storyteller, and I'm a history buff, and I really enjoy any kind of little tidbits about history that are interesting. And Dan publishes a newsletter every couple of weeks that is the most interesting read that I get. Or at least one of a couple of the most interesting reads that I get. And so if you go to livestreamlee.com, on the right-hand side, you're going to see a link to Dan Nelson. I highly recommend that you go sign up for his newsletter. Just check it out. If you like historical stuff, you're going to love what he has to send out. He's not sales pitchy. He's just educational, and it's a fun read. It'll be great trivia for your next dinner party or the next time you get together with people, out and around. It's just really interesting stuff. So Dan Nelson, good guy to know. Go to livestreamly.com, click on his link. All right, now let's go ahead and just jump into the app. Let me close the Dan Nelson thing. Let me close the Apricot Rocket banner thing so that you can focus your attention on the app that we're developing. Now, I had, whoops, wrong screen. Here we go. There we go. This is, as of this point in time, the way the app that we've been developing looks. And starting on the left side of the screen, the splash screen is, and let me just go ahead and zoom in just a little bit. Zoom in, here we go. The splash screen here on the left is what the app would look like when somebody launches it from their cell phone. Then they either sign up or they log in and they land on the home screen. So I'm going to just move over a little bit. The home screen is sort of the jumping off place to where they're going to go. And you can see 4 buttons there. There's a button for edit profile, view profile, add product, view products. This is so far what we've built. And then just continuing in sequence across, we have an edit profile screen, which is where you would actually, let me bring that over, where you would add your profile information, where you would create a profile about yourself as a user of the app. And then you could go and look at the profile that has been created. You can look at a list of products, you can add a product, and then continuing over, you can get to the detail of a product, you can edit a product, and then when you go to delete a product, you get this warning screen that says, are you sure this can't be undone? So now as I back up, you can see that this list of screens is getting kind of long. It's becoming a little bit unmanageable. So I like to organize my screens in a little different fashion than just a straight run through because it gets real confusing. And so you're going to want to develop a process, a paradigm, if you will, for how you organize your information. And I do this since, whoops, let me just move this over. Since the sign up and the login screens are kind of the first 2 steps in the process, I like to just sort of stack them right after the home screen or right after the splash screen because you're going to go to one or the other and then you go from there to the home screen. So that kind of just handles the sequence of splash, which has launched the app, and then you go to one of these 2 and you end up on the home screen. And then the next thing is the profile. So I'm going to move over just a little bit. And I like to place the profile up at the top. So I'm going to put the edit profile screen up here, and I'm going to put the actual profile screen kind of in sequence. Okay, so you can view the profile or you can edit the profile. So here we have your profile stack. And then the next is a list of your products. So I just move the product over and kind of put it right in sequence here. And then I like to add the add product down below. And then the edit functionalities I like to put up above. So here's the edit functionality. And now we have product detail. So basically the way this works is you go from the home to, you jump to the product. If you want to add a product, you come down here, edit a product, you go up here. And from this screen, you can actually choose a product and go to the product detail screen. Now, the delete product doesn't really need to be anywhere in particular, but I kind of like to put those things kind of all together so all of my product screens are together. So now you see that I have actually organized this information a little bit cleaner and try to move this around without jumping it too much. Sorry about that. Now I put it up on screen so you can see that it's actually organized a little bit more in terms of the flow and clustering things together. Now, the concept of clustering functionalities together visually is important because as you start to get a more complex app, it becomes more useful to you if you can actually sort of start visually putting things in groupings so that you know where to look for them and they just kind of make visual sense. So that's all I really wanted to show you as something to kind of just help you organize your information. Okay, so let's just run through the app and refamiliarize ourselves with where we're at. So if I click on preview and I go to the app, we've already logged in, so I'm on the edit profile screen. So if I click edit profile, we go to the edit profile screen, and now I can scroll down. Now it looks like I've got something right here. I can't quite tell what that is, but that looks like a text file that doesn't really belong there. Now, one of the things you have to learn about Adalo is it does get a little wonky at times especially as you start to get a lot of screens open, and that's because you're operating a system remotely that a lot is going on. So it looks like I might have dragged and dropped something I didn't intend to and overlaid it on this screen. So if I click the update user, that now takes me to my profile screen where I can see my profile information. And from here, I can either go home or I can edit the profile. So here I'm going to click on a home button and I go back home. So edit profile, view profile, we've done that. So if I want to view products, I come over here and here's the product that I've added. Okay, so I might want to add more products, but for the moment, we've got a product. We can click on the edit button. So now we can edit the product. And if we want to, we can change the information sports car that is the dream of all yuppies. Is the dream of all yuppies. Okay, so we update the product and then we click on that. That takes us back here. If I click not on the edit, but I click here, I can actually go to the detail of the page where I get to see the details of the product. And if I click edit products, this allows me to go in and edit the product. So this is a BMW X50 or something like that. I can change the name, come back, and I get to go to the product. I can click here and view the product. So we kind of cycle around. That's great. All that functionality works. But now, what would we really like to do? Okay, well, first of all, these are products that a user puts in. So in our database right now, let's just go open the database on the left. We have users and products. If we're going to do an Etsy style marketplace, we actually need vendors. We need companies, not just users. Now, a user could be a customer, it could be a vendor. So anybody that downloads the app and is using the app is a user. But not everybody that is a user of the app is going to be able to sell products. We're going to want to have a class of people that we call vendors that are going to sell products. Okay, so we need to add another database collection. So we're going to add a collection called vendors, and we're just going to call it vendors. Okay, and these are going to be the entities that sell things. And so I'm going to go ahead and add vendors. Now, a user can be a vendor. A user can also be a customer. So anybody that is a user can buy things, but only users that are also vendors can sell things. So what we've got is we've now got a class called vendors, and we've got one property called name. So I'm going to go ahead and click on name, and I'm just going to say that this field is ven name, ven underscore name, so that I know that it's the vendor name. Anytime I come across that field in anything I'm doing, I know it's related to vendor and it's the name of the vendor. So I've saved that. Now I'm going to add a property. And first of all, we need to know, I'm going to add a property, and we need to know whether or not this vendor what user the vendor is attached to. So I'm going to come down to the bottom. I'm going to click relationship, and I'm going to have a relationship with users. Okay, so there are, let me see if I can make this a little smaller so that you can see there are choices. We have to define the relationship between the user and the vendor. Okay, so we have to select one of multiple types of relationships. So Adalo tries to help you out by asking a question. So it says, is this a true statement? A user can have multiple vendors, but a vendor belongs to one user. Okay, well, that sounds like it might be right. Let's go look at the other one. A user can only have one vendor, but a vendor can have multiple users. Well, if a user creates a vendor, that doesn't sound right. And then the other is called the first one is a one-to-many. The next one is a many-to-one, and this is a many-to-many. A vendor can have multiple users, and a user can have multiple vendors. Well, that doesn't sound right. So the correct relationship here is that a user can have multiple vendors. Okay, so we're going to select that, and we're going to say done. Okay, so now we have a user type within the vendor category. And we also have a user collection, a user type within the vendor collection, and we also have a user collection. So what we're going to do is we're going to call this then_user, which tells us that this is the user under the vendor database. Okay, so we're going to save it. Now, we're also going to have products. Vendors have products, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to add another property, and this is going to be a relationship between vendors and products. Okay, so let's think about this. A product can have multiple vendors. Well, that doesn't sound right. I mean, a vendor creates products. How can a product have multiple vendors? So then we go to the next one. A product can only have one vendor, but a vendor can have multiple products. Well, that obviously is the correct answer. That's the correct relationship. So we're going to say done. Okay, so now what we've got is we've added a products attribute, a products property to the vendor. But again, we're going to put VEN_then products in front of that, and we're going to save it. Okay, so now let's go up and look at our users database. And we come down here and we're going to see vendors related in the users. Okay, so notice that this has a relationship indicator icon. And that means that when we made users related to vendors, we put a corresponding property in the user file. So if we open this, it says vendors. Well, I like to do user_vendors because this user can have multiple vendors. So we're renaming this user_vendors. Now, because our app is beginning to be more complex, at this point, I typically will go back in and I will start doing that same acronym or that same thing, user_photo. I'll save that, and then I'm going to go into zip and I'm going to put user_zip. That way I know this is the zip for user _state. And just do this for each one, user_city and user_street. And when we get a complex app going here later, it's going to really make a lot more sense. I'm going to do user_phone and then user full name. And I'm not going to worry about username because username, password, and email are unique to users. Okay, so we're not going to worry about those. Now I'm going to come down here to products, and I'm going to look at what's happened in the products section. And we already had product name, product price, product image, product description, but we now have a vendor. This is the relationship on the product side to the vendor collection that we created. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to call this product vendor. So this is the vendor associated with the product, but this is that record in the product. That's why it says product vendor. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then down here under vendors, you'll see I have VEN products. So VEN products and product vendors are the corresponding sort of counterbalancing records in each database for these two. So now what we can do is we can actually come over here. I'm going to go ahead and move this to the right, and we're going to zoom in. And so on this home page, we're going to start off with a simple create a vendor process. Okay, so we need to have a button for create a vendor. So I'm just going to copy this button that says add products, and I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to move it down here, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, move over just a little, and I'm going to call this add vendor. Okay, so we're gonna clean all this up later, but I want to walk you through step by step the logic of doing this. So we're gonna change the title to add vendor. And if you remember, we copied it and it was an add product, so this isn't the right screen. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to put a new action in, and this link is going to be to a new screen that is going to be called add vendor. Okay, and I'm just going to make it a simple screen. So we're going to create it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say done. And then where to go? Where is it? Well, look right here. You can see that there's been a new screen added, and this is the add vendor. Okay, so if I zoom in a little bit, we've now got sort of a new section for vendors. So I'm going to put the add vendor down here underneath. And then we're going to, when we add a vendor, we're going to have a vendor list, and then we're going to have an edit vendor above it. So we're going to create the add, we add a vendor, edit a vendor, and view list of vendors process all together. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into the add vendor. And how are we going to add a vendor? We're going to add a vendor by allowing us to create a vendor by coming over here and getting a form and dropping the form in. And so we just center it. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit so that we can see the form. And so this is a form, but right now it's not associated with any database. So we're going to select the database vendors. And currently the only option that we have is to create a vendor. We don't have the update option yet. So we're going to go ahead and leave it as create vendor, and we're going to look at our fields. So the fields that we can choose from are vendor name, and then that's it, vendor user and vendor products. Well, we're not going to show those fields, and so right now I'm going to keep it real simple so that you can see the relationships. We're only going to have a vendor name. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the button down here at the bottom, submit button. Create vendor, that's what this form is going to do. But when you click create, we need to go somewhere. So we're going to add another action. We're going to link to a new screen. We're going to link to vendor list. So we're going to link to a vendor list screen. It is going to be a blank screen. We're going to click on, and we've added it. And so if I see here, it's come up upper right-hand corner. We're just going to kind of move it down approximately where we want it. Now we're going to zoom in, and we're going to position it so that it is in the rows, and basically we're just kind of keeping things nice and neat. Okay, so actually I want to move this over just a little bit, have a little bit more space. I'm going to do the same thing here, just have a little bit more space. All right, so now we have a stack for vendors. Well, here's a vendor list. Okay, now here's something that you can do that's kind of cool. You can actually, if you have a list that you've already created, you can copy the list. So I'm going to highlight the list here, Control C, then I'm going to come over and I'm going to hit the vendors button, the vendor list, the page name, the screen name at the top, and I'm just going to click paste, and it pastes the list in. But over here on the left-hand side, you'll see that when I highlight it, it says it's a product list, and it's got all products. Well, here, it's also a product list, but I want to change that. So I'm just going to change it to vendors, all vendors. So bada boom, bada beam, I just quickly created a list of vendors. And what happens is when you come over here and you click on the add vendor, you jump down to the add vendor page, you give the vendor a name, it adds the vendor to this list of vendors. Well, I have an icon, I have a graphic here for a photo, a product name. All of these things have to be tidied up. Well, we don't have a vendor image. We don't have a vendor price or product. So we're going to have to kind of make some changes. So I'm going to highlight this right here, product name, and you'll see that it shows a product name field. But if I want to put the vendor name in, I just have to click the back button, and now I hit magic text, current vendor, vendor name. And we've just inserted the vendor name field there. Okay, now everything else, the edit buttons and the delete buttons and the pictures and all this other stuff, they're for the wrong list type, so they're not going to show anything that you can see here. Okay, so next what I want to do is I want to be able to edit the vendor. So I'm going to highlight the vendor edit button here, and it currently says link to edit product. Well, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to, because we're not editing a product, we're editing a vendor. So I'm going to click action, link to new screen, edit vendor. All right, and I'm just going to make a blank screen. I'm going to create. Now I'm going to zoom out and look at there, the screen's almost in the right spot, so we'll just move it over a little bit. Now we're going to zoom in and see if it, in fact, if I get it right, it's still a little bit to the left, so I'm just going to move it over, and I want to make it in sync, so I've kind of got a spot here. And just like before, I want to be able to edit the vendor. So if I take this screen, which is the edit product screen, Control C, Control C, that copies, and I come over to edit vendors and I Control V to paste, I paste in the screen. So over here on the left, you see it's a product screen. Over here on the right, you see it's still a product screen. So I just change it to a vendor screen. And since the only vendor data I have is a vendor name, it shows the vendor name. Now, if I highlight this and I go down to my submit button, it's going to take me to create vendor, which is correct because it is a vendor list, but it wants to link to the product list. Well, I don't want to do that. I'm going to link to the vendor list. So I can either delete it or I can just come in here and scroll down to my vendor list. Let's see here. Where's my vendor list? Here it is, vendor list. Click on vendor list. So look what's going to happen when it's going to transition. It's going to push the current vendor information back to the vendor list. So I'm going to click done. And now let's preview the app. I click on, actually, let's do one more thing. Let's come over here to our home screen. I've got an add vendor, but let's do a view vendors. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm just going to take this add vendor button. I'm going to copy it with Control V, Control C, or Control C, Control V. And I'm going to click, and I'm going to make it a view, view vendors. We're going to make that plural vendors. And then I'm going to change the link. Instead of going to the add vendor page, I'm going to change it and have it go to the view, to the vendor list page. It doesn't have a vendor to push because at this point it doesn't know who the vendor is, who the vendors are. That's okay. So now we've added 2 new buttons to our app and 3 pages, and we've organized the app. So we're going to click preview, and now let's click on view vendors. Well, look at there, the page is empty. Well, duh, there are no vendors. So I'm going to click the back button. There's no back button on the app. But I'm going to go to add vendor, and I'm going to put a vendor in here, and I'm going to call this ABC drilling. Okay, so ABC drilling, create vendor. Now it's going to take me to the vendor list where I see my ABC drilling. And if I click on the edit button, that'll take me to the edit page where I can actually, it says create vendor, doesn't it? So let's see if we've got the right link there. So I'm going to put it back. I'm going to say XYZ drilling, ZYZ drilling, create vendor. Okay, so that now takes me back. Oh, actually, you know what I did? I created vendors. I forgot to change the action type. Okay, so let's come back over here to the edit vendor screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom back in and notice that the edit vendor screen, it says vendors create new vendor, but that's really edit vendor. So I want to change it to update vendor. Okay, now that it's an update vendor screen instead of a create vendor screen, it'll do what we thought we were going to get in the way of an action. So now if we click on view vendors, it'll take us to our vendor list, and there's ZYZ, that should be XYZ. So let's click on edit, and now we can change the Z to X, wherever X is, that's S, here's X, XYZ drilling, update vendor, and now it'll take us back, and we've got XYZ drilling and ABC drilling, and we now have a functioning vendor list. All right, that's actually all we have time for today. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop out of this, and I'm going to come back over to StreamYard, and I'm going to turn that off, come back over here, and okay, so what we've done today in recap is we organized our screens to make it more sense logically when we look at the flow. And then we added a whole section for vendors. We basically took the user table and the products table, and we inserted in between them the vendors table. So we have a vendor table in between the users and products. So users create vendors, vendors create products. So we've now changed the flow of how the app works pretty significantly. So tomorrow on Friday, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to flesh out the products with prices and images and a bunch of additional functionality in preparation for actually making it possible to sell products. Okay, so it'll take another day or two to get to the point where you can actually sell products. And then it'll take yet a little bit more time to flesh out the rest of the app so that you can manage your vendors and charge them a fee to be able to get into your vendor database. So hopefully you're enjoying this. I know I'm having a lot of fun. I hope you are too. And so I just want to leave mentioning my good friend Carlos Cantu, who is a risk management specialist. And I know I've been in business for many, many years. Stuff happens that you don't expect. And a lot of times that stuff that happens, it can actually put you out of business. Carlos is in the business of helping make sure something doesn't happen to you that catches you by surprise and puts you out of business. There can be liability events, there can be casualty, loss, damage events, there can be thefts, there can be fires, there can be people robbing you, there can be sicknesses, there can be people suing you for no reason. All of these kinds of things and a whole bunch of other stuff can put you out of business in a heartbeat. And that is preventing that from happening is Carlos Cantu's job, and he's really good at it. He is expert at helping you know what kind of risks are realistic and likely to occur, and then helping you plan for and be protected against those kinds of things that can ruin all the hard work you put into your business. So go to livestreamly.com, click on the Carlos Cantu button, get to know Carlos. He supports this activity, and I support him. He is a good guy to know. So go there, check him out. You'll be glad you did. All right, we're done for today. I just wanted to say thank you again, and I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Cheers. Have fun.